Hey all, I've been reading this sub for a while now, cringing along with the rest of you at tales of socially awkward nerds filling their games with inappropriate content, of overpowered DMPCs reducing player characters to supporting roles in their own narratives, and just good old-fashioned GMs power tripping. Well, it is my pleasure, or actually my deep psychological trauma, which will almost certainly need to be handled by a trained mental health professional, to present you to a series of tales featuring all of the above. If you've ever wondered, is no D&D truly better than bad D&D? Allow me to present my case. Our antagonist here shall go by the alias of Nightmare, considering that's what she made playing tabletop RPGs for me for the last couple of years. A few months back, I quit playing in games she ran. Unfortunately, that wouldn't be the last time I shared a table with her virtually, thankfully. One of the other members of our group, a guy I'll call Tom, who I've been good friends with for a while, was also tired of Nightmare's laundry list of offenses. Both the really sensational stuff, like forcefully having her way with player characters, and the more mundane but still irritating things, such as how the game was always in session and players would be penalized for not participating in roleplay whenever she felt like it. On more than one occasion, she put plot critical information or even entire combat encounters into these off-hours text-only dumps. Tom was so far past the end of his rope that he decided to run his own game. A game where all the things that irked a good portion of our group about Nightmare's game would not be present. He wanted a game where we were actually an adventure party on a quest, and not role-playing out marriages or child-rearing for months on end. A game that would actually be fun. Tom added everyone to the new chat channel for his game. He was very upfront about the fact that in this game, romance was not a focus. Characters would not be having children. Everyone would be given a chance to be the main character for a bit, not just Nightmare's favorite. The whole group agreed to this. It lasted about a session and a half. During our party's mission into a goblin-infested cave to rescue some miners, we came across a pile of corpses. Tom described them to us as having a particularly nasty smell. Now, my character is the group's jerk. Out of character, the group is aware that she was going to start out that way, and as we played, the party would become closer. More of her own personal story would be revealed, and she would warm up to being in a group. Nightmare's character and mine had already butted heads, so when Mai investigated the pile, she made a completely in-character joke about the pile smelling similar to Nightmare's character. This kind of ribbing isn't uncommon for us, and most of the group was laughing about how savage it was. She seemed annoyed, so I did offer an apology in the moment. It wasn't brought up again for the rest of the session, and I had thought that was the end of it. But dear readers, if that was the end of our tale, I wouldn't be telling it to you, now would I? During the week, in our out-of-character chat channel, Nightmare declared her interest in becoming an instructor in the party's guild. Tom shot her down, since there was no way a new recruit who'd only done one low-level job would be given that kind of role. With that method of gaining status, she could lord over the rest of the group off the table. So her next request was to be able to buy her own guild. Apparently, her obsession with characters having children in her own games is because she's all about legacy. And since Tom had said he wasn't going to allow that, she wanted to be the founder of a legendary guild. So I'm guessing being one of the triumphant heroes of an epic struggle for the fate of the world isn't enough, was Tom's reply. He told her in no uncertain terms that if she started her own guild, the party wasn't obliged to go to her. she'd no longer work with the Adventurers Guild our characters were all a part of. After a little bit of arguing about how they could collaborate, or she could be a liaison between the two, her true motive emerged. This way, I wouldn't be bound by the no killing guildsmate restriction. The group's confusion was palpable, even through the text chat. Of course, I'd read about fine plots like it on this very subreddit, but it's rare that the would-be player killer outright admits in front of the entire group that that's what they are planning to do. Tom, being a good friend of mine, is actually sending me the messages he was receiving about how she had planned to have her lawful good paladin murder my character in cold blood for making a rather throwaway joke about her hygiene. Her actual words were that my character needed to die for staining my paladin's honor. I had questions. The first, of course, being, what the what? As I continued to talk with Tom, I asked him, did she think being guildmates was the only reason she couldn't get away with murdering my character? Wouldn't her god strip her of her powers for such a senseless act of violence? Does she even know what the words lawful and good mean? Tom's only response was, don't know. Although we eventually come to find that Nightmare was of the belief that since she was a paladin of vengeance, she could do whatever she wanted as long as she considered her target an enemy, and her god would just leave her alone. Tom, of course, was totally on my side. He talked her down, and she came groveling into the out-of-character chat, begging me to write a scene in which the pair reached a bit of common ground. I wanted this group to operate smoothly, and since Tom wasn't willing to outright dismiss Nightmare from the game just yet, this was probably the best way to ensure that. I asked Tom if she was plotting some kind of trap to kill my character off. He assured me that she wasn't, and that he'd make sure an NPC was on the scene as well to help fight her off if she did initiate combat. If even that didn't work, he'd retcon the events and undo my character's death. With those safeguards in place, I agreed to do the scene. During the course of the conversation, I asked Tom if I could roll insight to see if I could trust her character. He agrees, and I pass. I mentioned that my character had noticed aggression coming from hers. At the time, the two characters had gotten into an argument, and the paladin vaguely threatened my character to never insult her honor again. In character, we ended up agreeing that we likely wouldn't see eye to eye, but we'd stay out of each other's way for the good of the mission. It seemed like a fitting resolution to me, my guarded ex-drifter barbarian at least agreeing not to be enemies. It was a gradual step toward the promised softening. Behind the scenes, she had been apparently complaining to Tom about how my insight check was obviously metagaming, and my character wouldn't know that hers was plotting to kill her, unless she was a paranoid freak. But never fear, my character is a paranoid freak. Since the beginning of the game, she had been stealthily writing down information about the rest of the party in a notebook, in the event that they didn't remain allies. Tom showed me messages from her insulting me and saying, "It's evident we can't be in the same game." "I agree," I wrote back. "I think she should leave." Tom was hesitant to throw her out, though he had essentially placed her on probation. I was satisfied for the moment. He had my back in this situation, and I was sure that he'd toss her if she got out of hand again. Alas, dear readers, Nightmare would continue to prove as worthy of the name as a player as she was as a GM. Once again, we have people trying to see the good in people. It's fairly obvious that Nightmare has a childish outlook on things, so I don't know why OP plays with her. If one of your friends is toxic, then you need to leave that friend group if no one can see how bad that is for the group as a whole. If the offender agrees to change, then fine. But fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, Shame on me. What do you all think about this situation?